Hello everyone, I'm Kalle from TunerMax. I've released 6 games on 7 different platforms so far, and today I want to tell you exactly how much our only platformer made on Steam, and to have the big number right up front, it's been $8,800 so far, which doesn't really sound that good. I mean, the game ended up grossing about $25,000, which already sounds a lot better, but we still made some huge mistakes with this release. But to go into that in more detail, let's have a look at my desktop. So the game in question is called Die Känguru-Verschwörung, or the Kangaroo Conspiracy. And it's a tie-in for a German comedy movie from 2022. And by the way, the reason I decided to make this video now is because I saw a video the other day from Indie Game Clinic, which is a pretty interesting YouTube channel from an industry veteran game designer. And his last video has the title, Are Platformers Dead? And the thing he's alluding to with this is this chart from howtomarketagame.com, which is a platform from Chris Zuckowski, who's a well-known Steam strategist. I would say lots of indie game developers follow his endeavors to dig into the troves of data from Steam and try to extract some useful knowledge that can help you to earn money with your indie games. And something that's talked about quite often is this graph here, where he has different game genres at the bottom, and then he compares how many games there are, which is these blue bars, to the number of games which actually have over 1,000 reviews or something like this. And so, for example, on the left here, you have roguelike deck builder, 4X games, simulation and management, city builders. And so according to this, it would be pretty smart to make a 4X game because there aren't many 4X games. But the 4X games that are there very often get over 1,000 reviews. And on the other hand, you have platformers. Here is 2D platformer and 3D platformers, and they have a ton of games with very, very low success on average. Of course, creating a game that's based on an external IP like a movie creates a whole lot of problems that I won't go into in this video because it's a topic of its own. So instead, let's just have a look at our nice, clear Steam numbers. So first of all, here we have the Steam data of the launch week of the game. Unfortunately, it came out on December 26th, which is a pretty stupid day to release a game, I guess. But this happened because the DVD and Blu-ray of the film came out on that date, and we thought if we release them at the same time, this will have a super great marketing effect, you know. But unfortunately, I think it didn't help at all. And also there was no real marketing because the film flopped in the movie theaters. But as I said, that's a totally different discussion. So let's just look at these numbers here. I mean, we made a total revenue of $1,795 and sold 282 units in launch week. And if we look at the whole first month, we can see we grossed $2,659 there and sold 388 units. And as you can see, this graph here really tanks pretty hard after about 2 weeks. And then we only have the so-called long tail of the game, which in the end brought the total gross to $8,800, as I said. And of course, this still includes VAT, so you have to deduct all the sales taxes. And then there are also returns, of course, which are pretty low at 2.5% of Steam units for this game. So I think that's a pretty low number. But all in all, the net revenue turns out to be $7,259. We sold 1,791 copies, but there's also a huge bunch of retail units, which is 2,596 units. And those mainly come from a bundle sale. So the lifetime total units are 4,387, which isn't too bad, but I guess if you look at the total net revenue, then each copy sold for $2 or something like this. And another very interesting thing to look at are wishlists, of course. And here we come to the core of our problems, I guess. Because in December 25 of 2022, when the game launched, we only had 94 outstanding wishes. And it's, of course, pretty suicidal to launch a game with such a low number of wishlist ads. I mean, this was already 4 years ago, and hopefully we all get smarter over time. And everybody will tell you today, of course, that you need a demo to get a significant number of wishlists before you launch. And the super dumb thing in our case is we even did that. We had a demo of the game with only 3 levels when the film came into movie theaters. But the really bad mistake we made was there was no way to go directly from the demo to a wishlist page. And I guess lots of people who played that demo thought this was only a promotional tool for the movie and there would never be a full game, even though, of course, we did have a little announcement in the demo, but it was a little bit hidden. And of course, you should never expect people to search for your own marketing ideas, you know. Stuff like this has to be pretty much on the nose or it will probably not work at all. But still, the development of wishlists has been quite interesting since then, so let's have a look at that too. Because when it comes to the lifetime wishlist actions, you see they basically grow in a linear fashion, never really stopped growing. And also the total purchases and activations keep growing. And this is so much in sync that basically the number of outstanding wishes here is staying pretty steadily at the 1,200 mark. And you always have these little jumps here when we did some major announcement or update to the game. But since the additions don't show any signs of slowing down, I guess we will still make a little bit of money from the game in the future. And speaking of making more money, we didn't only release the game on Steam, but also on mobile, so it was available for iPhones and Android phones, and later even on PlayStation 5, and we entered a bundle deal at one point. So the total gross came to about $25,781.50, and minus platform cuts, refunds and VAT, that makes a final payout of $15,855.62. I mean, if you consider the amount of work that went into the game, that hardly adds up to a European minimum wage for our team. I mean, I still think working on the game was pretty cool, and I definitely do it again, even though it would have been much cooler, of course, if we made more money. But on the other hand, it could have gone way, way worse, because if you look at this graph, which I made with some data from SteamSpy, you can see that the number of about 70 reviews we're having is actually pretty good. You know, if you have 50 to 99 reviews, you're already in the top 23% of Steam. And I mean, the downside of this is that probably means that the top 23% on Steam don't even make enough money to survive. But still, as a metric to rank your own success or lack thereof, I think this is really fine. Could be much worse, and I really like being in the top 23%. So going back to this graph here, I think it's a little bit of the typical correlation isn't causation thing. You know, just because there are a lot of platformers and the average money they make isn't so high can also just mean that there are a genre that's very tempting for new developers to make, because who didn't love Super Mario and Sonic and stuff like this as a kid, right? Also, they're pretty easy to make, so the bar of entry is pretty low. And of course, that means you have a lot of entries and also a lot of titles that are not really fleshed out, made by people who don't know anything about marketing yet. And so they stay totally under the radar, so even if they're good, maybe nobody will notice them because they drown like a tear in the ocean, essentially, you know. And this is also what Indie Game Clinic acknowledges in this video. So just like me, I think he's a proponent of the idea that you should make the game you want to make, that you really have a lot of enthusiasm for. But of course, this might not be the smartest decision if you really want to make money with your first game. And while things didn't go stellar for the Kangaroo Conspiracy, I think it was a pretty interesting experiment, and I guess this shows that if you put even more effort into a platformer and make it all a little bit smarter than we did, there's really a good chance of making it and creating a game that's financially feasible in the end. So with that being said, that was all from me for today. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!